In every generation, of course, the thickness of the paper doubles. So we go 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, and so on. We go on multiplying by 2 50 times. After we've multiplied by 2 50 times, what have we got? We've got a very big number indeed. We've got, in fact, 1,000 trillion, of one with 15 noughts after it. The sheet of paper is 1/10 of a millimeter thick. If you multiply that by 1,000 trillion, you end up with, I've got it written down here, 100 million kilometers. The thickness of the paper would take us out to the orbit of Mars. The number of bacteria after a mere 50 generations is that. But 50 generations is nothing to bacteria. They can get through 50 generations in a day. After about a week, bacteria, the number of bacteria would be more than 1 billion times the number of atoms in the known universe. Well, that's called exponential growth, what mathematicians call exponential growth. We'll come back to it. Needless to say, it doesn't happen to the same extent, at least. After a point, natural factors come to regulate the size of the population of bacteria. Our original assumption that it was easy to become an ancestor was wrong. Only an elite become ancestors. You can do the same sort of calculation, by the way, for ourselves or for elephants, as Charles Darwin did, and it just takes a little bit longer, but the same idea is there. After a fairly short number of years, you'll find that the entire universe is filled with elephant flesh or human flesh or whatever it is. So it follows that most organisms that are born must die without becoming ancestors, without becoming distant ancestors. Only an elite are destined to become ancestors. Well, some people don't like the word elite, but I just mean that it won't be all luck which ones end up ancestors. The ones that are going to be ancestors will tend to be the ones that are good at it. They'll tend to be the ones that have what it takes, to survive, to get a mate, to reproduce, to avoid being eaten, to find food, to be good parents, and so on. That's really just a way of putting Darwin's theory of natural selection, because we that are left, we that survive, will have inherited the genes of a long line of successful ancestors. We'll have inherited whatever it took to make them successful as ancestors. But for the moment, I want to emphasize something else, which is that we are lucky to be alive. We're lucky to be alive because it would have been so easy for our ancestors not to have been here. It would have been so astronomically probable that somebody else would have been here rather than us. And we're lucky to be alive for another reason. Think about it this way. The universe is about 14,000 million years old. That's 140 million centuries. Some 60 million centuries from now, the sun will become a red giant and engulf the Earth. So there are about 200 million centuries from the origin of the universe to the end of the world. Now, of the 140 million centuries since time began, every one of them was once the present century. And of the 60 million centuries to the end of the world, every one of them will be the present century. The present century is a tiny spotlight inching its way along a gigantic ruler of time. Everything before the spotlight is in the darkness of the dead past. Everything after the spotlight is in the darkness of the unknown future. We live in the spotlight. Of all the 200 million centuries along the ruler of time, 199,999,999 centuries are in darkness. Only one is lit up, and that's the one in which we happen, by sheer luck, to be alive. The odds against our centuries happening to be the present century are the same as the odds against a penny tossed out at random on the road from London to Istanbul happening to fall on a particular ant. Well, in spite of those odds, you may have noticed that we are, as a matter of fact, here. And it really, of course, it's not surprising. We're here because we're the ones doing the calculation. If somebody has just done the calculation that we've just done, then that somebody, of course, has to be alive. Nevertheless, I do feel rather lucky to be alive, and for another reason, too. Now, the smoke going into the beam represent stars. Each particle of smoke represents one star. And you can think of the beam as a gigantic searchlight beamed out from space and signaling from our planet in the hope that somebody else on another world will pick up the message. We don't know how likely it is that there is anybody up there. We can say that if our message does hit another planet, then almost certainly it'll be so far away that if those people up there had a telescope looking back at us, then what they would be seeing is not us at all, but the dinosaurs that was here 65 million years ago. Or in other words, our message will reach people millions of years into the future. People vary in their estimates of how much life there is likely to be, how likely there is to be life on other planets. Some people think that, some scientists think that as many as 10 million technologically advanced civilizations are out there. Other people feel that this life here on this planet is the only life that there is. But even on the most extremely optimistic estimate, it's still true that most of those worlds out there are going to be deserts. Most of them are not going to have any life on them at all, nor even any possibility of life on them at all. Now imagine a spaceship full of sleeping, perhaps deep frozen explorers, would-be colonists of another world. Perhaps they're the last population of Earth, despairing that Earth is about to be destroyed, sending out a colony to look for another planet anywhere in order to carry on humanity. Imagine that the spaceship turns out to be almost unthinkably lucky. It does chance to arrive at one of the very, very rare planets capable of sustaining our kind of life, a planet of the right temperature with oxygen, and so on. The passengers wake up and stumble out into the light, and they see a beautiful world of waterfalls, green leaves, mountains, colored animals and bird-like creatures flitting about. Can you imagine how it would feel if you woke up, perhaps after 100 million years of sleep in a spaceship, and found yourself on such a world? A whole new world, a world that such as you could live on, a beautiful world. You'd surely bless your luck in arriving on such a rare world, walk around in a daze, a trance, unable to believe the wonders that met your eyes and ears. Well, this will almost certainly never happen to us. And yet, in a way, it's just what has happened to us. We have woken up after hundreds of millions of years of sleep. Admittedly, we didn't arrive by spaceship, we arrived by being born. But the wonder of the planet, the dazzling surprise of it, is the same, whether we arrive by spaceship or by birth canal. We are amazingly lucky to be here, privileged, and we must not waste that privilege. Here, it seems to me, lies the best answer to those narrow-minded people who are always carping on about the use of science. The founder of these Christmas lectures, Michael Faraday, was once asked by the then Prime Minister, Sir Robert Peel, what was the use of science? Sir Faraday replied, what is the use of a baby? She says her name's Hannah. Faraday said, what is the use of a baby? And I've always thought that what he meant by that must be that a baby has such potential. It may not be able to do very much now, but it will be able to do a lot. But it's also possible that what Faraday meant was that there's no point in bringing a baby into the world if all that it's going to do is work to go on living and work to go on living again. If that's all the point of life, then what are we here for? There's got to be more to it than that.